Hey guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today I'm bringing you part 2 of our Back to Basics series, all based on goldfish food and nutrition. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed and click that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all our future videos on a Sunday and a Wednesday. Also, check out the link in the description if you aren't part of the Facebook group. We've got 5,500 members now and it's just growing so quickly. I'm really happy with it. We've got a great team of mods, and if you aren't part of the family, then click that link below and become part of it. Just want to do a quick disclaimer. I have no affiliate links or referral links with the food brands that I'm talking about today, and I haven't actually done any scientific testing. I'm just giving you my views and observations on the different foods. So previously I mentioned what each part of the diet does and all the different nutritional requirements of our fancy goldfish. I'll also be doing a few videos in the future on how to make our own foods at home, gel foods and like homemade prepared foods. Also, this overview on these foods isn't taking into account prices and how much you're actually getting for the price you pay. Goldfish in their natural environment like to eat shrimp, crustaceans like gamma shrimps, bloodworms, plant foliage and all little microorganisms within the substrate. However, we all know that our fancy goldfish have been heavily modified from the common goldfish, so they're not really a natural species, so to say, so we can kind of vary the diet and mix it up a little bit compared to what we would generally feed wild fish, like if you got a wild caught discus for instance. When looking at the diets, we want to see a high protein content which has come from good quality protein sources like insect meal or high quality fish meal proteins. We don't want to really see too much carbohydrates, fillers like bran meal, wheat flour, brewer's yeast, all of that sort of thing. Firstly, let's look at the purple bag from Hikari diet. I'm just going to put a quick image on the screen of the nutritional analysis and also the ingredients within this food. We all know this is a small sinking pellet that originates from Japan. As you can see from the ingredients list and the nutritional analysis, the Hikari food has got quite a lot of protein in it, which is really good to see. The high ash content would lead me to believe that the fish meal isn't quite as good quality as we want. It's probably from some bony fish and probably oily fish like some mackerel or herring for instance, and that high ash content is likely from the bones of the fish. This also may explain why the fat level is slightly higher than some of the other diets that we're going to see today. As you can see, there's quite a lot of carbohydrates in this diet from soybean meal and wheat flour, which isn't quite what we'd like to see, especially so high up the list just after the fish meal protein within there. So it looks to me like there's quite a lot of bulking agents and some more complex carbohydrates that aren't really required for the goldfish, and we don't really want to see this within our diets, because when you're making a homemade food, you're not going to start putting wheat flour, brewer's yeast, soybean meal, all of these bulky carbohydrates within the diet, because it's not very easy for the goldfish to digest. It's nice to see that there's a few amino acids in there and nice level of vitamins, which is good, and it will help digest that high level of protein, so that's quite nice to see from Hikari. However, the large majority of ingredients high up the list, which shows that these are the largest ingredients because the ingredients list from largest quantity to smallest quantity, and saying that the large amount of fillers and carbohydrates doesn't leave me with too much confidence in this food. Although I fed it myself and I've had good growth rates and the fish have really liked the food, it doesn't fill me with too much confidence, especially as I know this is quite a pricey goldfish food. Next, we're going to look at the New Life Spectrum goldfish food. I'm just going to put a little picture up here of the nutritional analysis and the ingredients within this food. This food, as you can see, has a large number of exciting ingredients, just like the Rapashi food. Just check out all the ingredients in there. It's much better for our goldfish. It's enhanced with a much larger, diverse range of different ingredients, which is really nice to see. Just check out the first 10 ingredients, for instance. Krill, squid, spirulina. There's just so much packed into this tiny pellet. These ingredients are much more palatable and the goldfish can digest them much better in compared to large bulky carbohydrates within the diet. There's also a high level of amino acids, which is really nice to see, and the level of fillers is much smaller. Although we do need those fillers in there to bulk out the food, because it can't just be high quality protein and high quality algae meals and algae oils, because these are really expensive ingredients. So we do like to see a little bit of fillers because the carbohydrates is required, as we previously saw in the first video. Overall, I have no negative comments about this food. So next we're going to move on to the Vitalis food. I'm sure many of you recognise this food and feed it yourself. Here's a little picture of the ingredients list. Although the ingredients list is very complex and it's quite simple to look at, the protein is significantly lower than the Saki Hikari diet. The nutritional analysis within the food looks quite good and quite reasonable for a slightly lower cost goldfish food when compared to some of the other brands. However, the moisture content is slightly elevated, which shows that the food might have slightly better quality ingredients. As well, when you see a higher moisture content, the quality of the ingredients should be slightly better, as I believe the Vitalis food manufacturers use a cold press and they do not use high temperature steam presses for their pellets, so the quality of the ingredients should be much better and more locked in to the diet. The inclusion of the algae and the mollusk ingredients also is quite good for the goldfish, give them a little bit of that natural diet that we spoke about previously. And overall, I'd say it's quite a decent food, maybe not quite as good as the New Life Spectrum, but I believe it's slightly cheaper. So overall, it looks like quite a decent food, maybe not to the quality of the New Life Spectrum, but overall, I'd say this is quite a good one for you to use. So finally, we've got the Japan Super Gold, and I'm sure many of you use this food yourself. It's really readily available in the UK, and I know a lot of hobbyists use this one. Here's a little picture of the tub. It's quite hard to see because the labels are so curved, and it was really hard for me to find a good quality picture of the ingredient. As you can see, the protein content is a whopping 53%, which is really good to see. Unfortunately, the first ingredient on the list is actually a vegetable protein, which isn't what I'd like to see from a good quality goldfish diet. It's got quite a basic ingredients list compared to some of the other diets we've seen, and also I'd like maybe for them to include something like some krill meal or some algae or seaweed extract. That would be quite nice to see. However, we all know this encompasses the cost of the food, and obviously these foods are all at different price ranges. So we've gone over a few different foods now, and when I'm selecting my own food, I like to see a good quality protein content within there from good sources, as I said, like high quality fish meal, maybe from salmon. I know that the Bug Bites food includes salmon, and also insect proteins from like black soldier fly larvae, which I've looked at quite extensively, and black soldier fly larvae are really high in protein, and they've got good fat levels for our fish. So the Bug Bites is another food that I definitely would consider using. It's also good to see some little extra quality ingredients like spirulina, crab eggs or lobster eggs, algae oils, that sort of thing. Helps mix up the diet a bit and add a little bit of enrichment to the diet compared to a more basic pellet. Also, many of you might not recognise that if you see something called astaxanthin within the diet, this is actually a colour enhancer, and they use this in the salmonid industry. So you might go into your local supermarket and you might see trout fillets, for instance. These might be quite an orange colour, but if that astaxanthin wasn't included within the diet, those trout fillets would be really pale and look washed out. They actually use these colour enhancers for the flesh to give the trout that really orange look, so it looks similar to salmon, and the astaxanthin works just the same within the goldfish, and it helps those vibrant colours come out on the fish. So if you see that fairly high up the list, then that's definitely a good thing to consider. Although astaxanthin is a really expensive product, as it originates from krill in the Antarctica, but that's just another little piece of information there to think about. Also, when selecting a food, I want to see a really small pellet, as this is easily digested and more palatable for our fish. No matter if you've got large fancy goldfish or small fancy goldfish, it's good to see a small pellet, as this is nice and easy for them to digest, because goldfish actually don't have a stomach. They've just basically got a long intestine, long gut basically, and they aren't that efficient at removing the nutrients from the food. So a smaller pellet is more easily broken down and the nutrients can be extracted. Also, as I said, we're going to be doing a few videos on homemade gel foods and just homemade foods in general, which are actually much better for your goldfish if you can put quality ingredients in them. When pellet foods get wet, they swell up and they can impact the swim bladder within your goldfish. So these homemade gel foods are already wet, they won't cause as much of an impact on your goldfish. So a lot of people actually will not even consider feeding their fish pellets, and they just feed a homemade gel food constantly to get all those essential nutrients in the diet. So I hope that's given you all a bit of a deeper insight when selecting a food for your goldfish, and to maybe take a look at that label in the shops just before you buy it, and buy the cheapest one or just buy even the most expensive one, and take a look at what actually is within the diet. As I said, we want to see a good level of protein, we want to see a good level of fish meal or insect protein, and we want to see not too many fillers and too many carbohydrates up the list. I'm also going to be trialing a new pellet from one of the main breeders in Thailand, and I'm going to be giving that a go and seeing how the goldfish do on that and whether they like it. So I'm sure I'll do a little review video on that one. Sorry, that was quite an in-depth video. I'm sure it probably wasn't that easy to keep your attention. So if you've made it to the end, thank you, you're a true legend. I'll catch you in the next video. Have a nice rest of your weekend and happy fish keeping.